That was right down to the wire. We were selling light fittings in our house to pay the mortgage. We were like having to hustle the money to keep things ticking over. We've all done it in our lives where you overstretch yourselves to get up to that next level of house or whatever. We'd just done all of that, and then all the hard times hit at the same time. So it was like a perfect storm, really. And you sort of have to keep hustling. It's brutal. It's a street fight then, businesses. It is like you have to get off the floor and keep fighting to keep the business going, basically. And that takes real grit. I don't think everyone can do that.
Welcome to Your Mind, Your Business, the podcast that dives into the real grit of entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Karina McLeod, entrepreneur and fitness fanatic. And today we have a special guest, Matt Anderson from Optimize. Welcome, Matt.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So I'm super excited to talk to you today because I know you we've known each other for a couple of years now, but I know that there's much more of a story behind your entrepreneurial journey. So to start off, for our audience, it'd be great if you could share a little bit about who you are, about where you're at now, and then I'm going to hit rewind and go back to the start of your journey.
Yeah, so I'm Matt Anderson. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer currently at Optimize. So that's a full service Amazon and marketplace agency. And I've been in the world of digital for the last 20 odd years now.
Oh, fantastic. So, and that's it. You've so you're at Optimize now, but let's hit rewind and let's go back. Go back. How far should we go back in terms of your journey?
Well, I think I'm not old, but I'm not young. But I had a varied journey. Started off in corporate back in the late 90s, really, in P&O, Trans-European, and that was sort of like supporting sales and marketing support. So big corporate like Shell, ICI, and that was quite a whizzy sort of awakening from a young Matt into the world of corporate life, and took that traveling all around Europe, all around the UK, long hours. That was got burnt out, got shingles just on the back of the working really hard, but met lots of interesting people, did a lot of interesting work, and then went into Dyson as well after that, more locally, after I met my wife down in the Bristol area and went out to the world of Malmesbury and stopped driving around the country so much. So that's where I was in the corporate life. And then we decided to, before getting married, we decided to sort of travel around the world and Australia and places like that, because we'd been in corporate and we'd done the hamster wheel, as it were, and we thought actually we just need some time out just to refocus. And then it was on a beach in Western Australia, and we were like, oh, perhaps we could set up our own company and do this marketing thing ourselves, because she was in the world of PR and she's good at getting our name out there. And so we came back and handed in my notice at Dyson, and my family and all my friends thought I was nuts. It's like, this is amazing. No, because obviously they're just taking off in the States, and amazing company. And decided to sort of hand my notice in with my wife and set my first company up back then. That was 2003.
Oh, wow.
So 21 years ago, Christ. But yeah, so and that was quite interesting within that. That was Montage Communications. That was focused on the world of PR on her background, and then I was just getting into sort of the digital side of things as well. Online PR, inverted commas, and influencers and all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. And that was just sort of back in the day when we'll just send a press release to an influencer and they'll cover it, sort of thing. So that's sort of how it works. So we're just trying to find a way with it all, and that was quite interesting. We were doing National Lottery winner PR at the time. It's from Amy's background, dealing with like red top newspapers and the Daily Mail and the Mirror, lovely publications, but be able to understand like how the way of the world works on the media side of the media, but also alongside how hard social media is starting to make it that we couldn't control the narrative in media, which was really interesting. So one example that sort of really got me interested in social media back then was there was a National Lottery winner in Avonmouth, if I remember rightly, and she'd won £1 million on a scratch card. Now, in her wisdom, she thought, I know, I'm going to tell everyone, friends and family, I'm going to post on Facebook and let everyone know I won £1 million. It blew up. I got a telephone call going, Matt, get over there now. There's 15 reporters outside this woman's house. She's scared. People going through her rubbish, people knocking on the back door, front door. Can I have a photo? Can I have this, that, and the other? And you're just thinking, well, this social media thing's quite powerful, because how all their media, all the local community knew about this before we knew about it, so we couldn't control the media, which is what any good PR say. You can't control the media outlet, but you can steer the agenda. You can set the pace of the stories that are going out there. Whereas social media was just disrupting it. You couldn't control the narrative, as it were. So I thought that was really interesting, that actually this thing called Facebook back then was like, oh, I've really got to get into this,
Yeah.
And that's what sort of took me in that journey, really, way back when.
That's crazy, because I mean, I didn't know that you started off and you were at Dyson.
Yes.
I remember going to Dyson head office at
Yes.
one point when I was with Amazon, funnily enough, trying to get them to become a brand on Amazon, which is interesting. But
they weren't having any of it. No,
definitely not.
No.
That was one negotiation that didn't go to plan.
Yeah.
But, really fascinating that you started off in the corporate world and then travelled, and then obviously, I'm guessing, got a little bit of taste for freedom.
Yes.
And being outside that corporate world. What was going through your mind when you've made this decision to set up a business, and you come back, you hand in your notice, everyone around you is probably, as you say, saying, are you crazy?
Yes.
Where was your mindset then?
Corporate's great, and don't get me wrong. I mean, my stepbrother and sister, one was like ex-Mars, and one is, she's like the corporate controller for Microsoft. So I mean, corporate is great, and it can be, if you hit it right and you've got the right culture and the right personal development plan, it can be really enriching. You can go really far. But sometimes when you're stuck in a corporate machine and it's sort of like you're a small cog in a big machine, you can get lost, and it feels a bit soul destroying, and you're not really master of your own destiny, I guess. So that was what I think. That was what was stressing me out in corporate. That is, I could see opportunities, and there's things I wanted to do, but had a million forms to fill out. And Dyson was great at the time, way back when James Dyson used to come and sit on your desk on the first day, and you build a vacuum cleaner with him. That's a long time ago now. I'm sure it's not the same now, but so you could have you could speak to the top dog, as it were, and it'd sort of recognize you. But in the big corporate machines, it's just like you're lost. And I think it was that feeling of being lost, which is really counterintuitive to anyone in big corporates. So there's like my family were like, they would be lost in the world of being entrepreneurial. What happens next, and when does the paycheck come from, and where does the work, and how do you pay your mortgage, and all that sort of stuff, versus the world of corporate. I've had lots of stories that people in corporate coming back off holiday and then just finding a brown envelope on the desk going, oh, you've been made redundant, sort of thing. You don't really, for me, I don't think you've got as much control in corporate, which is counterintuitive. When you're an entrepreneur, you're in control of the P&L, you're in control of the pace of work, or how much work you take on, or whatever. So to me, it was quite liberating, and still is. It still is. It's a real fire for me. I get, it's sort of, oh well, where's the next challenge, really? So that's what I think. That's what really gets us both working. And on my wife's side of the family, they're all entrepreneurs, and my mother-in-law's just in her 80s, and she's like, oh, we've come back and we've set up an eBay business, and we're selling bits of mid-century modern on eBay. And I'm like, Jan, you're 80, for Christ's sake. But she's like, it's that spark, I think, that really keeps me going.
And it's interesting that you say about, there's almost an element of false sense of security, right, in terms of that corporate world, as you sort of say, as in, well, I am secure, but you're secure in the hands of someone else, as you say, and you've got that control, and that's your fire. Well, as you know, in the world of Amazon now, there's lots of people, Amazonians that I know, that are worried because all of a sudden there's a press release going out, oh, by the way, we're making 10,000 people redundant. And you're like, well, even
big Goliaths like that, how safe are you unless you're right at the top and you can sort of steer those decisions. So I think, I think that's what sort of drove me into the world of entrepreneurship. It's like the ideas and the opportunity and being able to sort of, get out there and hustle, as it were, which is great. But then just having being a master of your own destiny, really, is what drew me to being an entrepreneur.
And I guess, I mean, that's the great thing about being an entrepreneur. Like, you are the master of your own destiny, but it also comes with some challenges, right? And that's part of like the reason for this podcast is for those to not only hear that and go, oh, okay, I want to be the master of my own destiny. I'll go and set this up. It's going to be really easy. Is that you've got to have that real grit and persistence to get there. So you mentioned about like you saw the kind of almost potential of Facebook, like from a social. What then went through your mind to then, because you're really I still see you as that digital expert. Where did that journey take you, and where were you? What were those challenges that you were facing?
The challenges were, Facebook, that's really good. There's a really big opportunity here. It's blowing up. And then pitching that to marketing directors, and they're going, well, no, that's just for kids. Why should we get involved with this? This is big homeware brands and big, lifestyle companies and products like the Dysons of this world should be all over social media and driving it. But they were just like, it's not really for us. We're newspapers and TV ads, and that's it, really. And so having to sort of get pitching and being turned down lots at that time, and that's one of the things, like if you're getting into something really early, like the world of AI, for example, now it's like you're going to get lots of people being really skeptical about your pitch, and like lots of knockbacks and lots of not for me, or no, or tiny budget, or we'll give you a small budget and see how it goes, sort of thing, versus actually the real sort of meaty stuff. So I think it's that old school sort of wearing out some shoe leather and knocking on doors and getting turned down lots, and then understanding the value proposition that you have to pitch to people to get people to go, light bulb moment, or get to a win-win, like, well, what isn't there not to like, really? And I think for me in the world of like online PR was like the influencers and the Guido Fawkes of this world in the world of politics could be used to drive the news agenda, drive even more coverage online. You can, through news wires, actually drive a lot of buzz around the launch. And that was like, the penny drop moment for clients to go, actually, well, a blogger is just as important as a red top, because the bloggers tend to break the news and the red tops follow. And, actually, we can drive a news agenda, or we can steer it, or... So that was like the win-win moment of going, well, oh, right, okay, because in the world of PR, it used to be all about these sort of big portfolios that you could open up and go, oh, look at all this coverage you've got for the National Lottery, and aren't we amazing, sort of thing. And that's what way back then, what everyone was really focused on is like, where are the column inches? But actually showing that actually, a blogger can drive a lot of column inches, or even front page news, if it's broken right, and it's that win-win moment. I think that would start to sort of really drop in the sales pitch, really.
I love that you say the win-win moment. Like, how long did it take you to get there? And like, was there ever a moment where you're getting turned down, people aren't seeing your vision, that you just thought, right, sack it all in, go and get a job, or that point where you're just going to give up?
Yeah, I think when we first sort of launched our company, I think our logo was designed by us and our Welsh lodger at the time, bless him, he worked at the MOD. So we were just like hustling, we had no money whatsoever, and you sort of sitting there staring at a screen going, what am I doing, and when's the money going to come in, and how are we going to pay the bills, and all that sort of stuff. And I think it's that sort of keep on pitching, and it, one time went well, and we were doing stuff with some like the big sort of London agencies and like regional work for like B&Q and Starbucks and things like that. We've got a nice little niche of like Southwest PR, as it were. And that was starting to get, but it was sort of going up and down, up and down. I seem to remember going into 2008 and I think it was about 5 phone calls in a week from clients going, we're cutting the budgets, there's no more money, through the bankers crash, there's a big credit crunch, or clients going, sorry, we can't pay you this week. It was like a real sort of crunch of like, when we all goes ups and downs, and we just discussed some ups and downs before we came on the pod, that you win some, you lose some, and there's a general rhythm in business, isn't there? But then it was brutal. It was like call. No budget, no money. And I was like literally sitting there. I'd just moved house in Bristol in a nice area, which is like Clifton. It's a bit like the Chelsea of Bristol over there, and taking on this huge mortgage, literally just within 6 months of my second child, my daughter is being born, and so there's all these like cost pressures, and you're just thinking, what do we do? So I just got into a rhythm of really honing, taking that opportunity of going, actually, it's like an inflection point, really. 2008 was, it's like the old school media and ways were dying out with the banking, really, as at that time. But there was still, the growth was still in digital, because people saw that as cheaper, and those huge advertising budgets we're putting into the broadsheets we'll put into digital, because the money will go further. And I was sort of pitching that, and it sort of clicked, and I won my first sort of big piece of sort of social work with a company called Brabantia, doing like pan-European social media and influencer work as well. And that was like a bit like the big contract which sort of pulled the company through that sticky point, really. But that was right down to the wire. We were we were selling light fittings in a house to pay the mortgage. It was like we were like having to hustle the money to keep things ticking over, because we've all done it in our lives where you overstretch yourselves to get up to that next level of house or whatever. We'd just done all of that, and then all the hard times hit at the same time. So it was like a perfect storm, really. And you sort of have to keep hustling, it's brutal. It's a street fight then, businesses. It is like you have to get off the floor and keep fighting to keep the business going, basically. And that takes real grit. I don't think everyone can do that, but
100%. And hats off that you did, because I think that's it, right? That's the bit that people don't hear. They're like, oh, okay, well, that all died out, sort of traditional media. So then you were able to just pitch like for social, and then that worked out. But they don't understand that you are literally, as you say, sort of picking yourself up to be able to. And then I guess that's finding that fight, or there's that point where you just like, right, I'm done. But you fought through it.
Yes, I think there's that, and there's a few times, obviously, since like COVID and the Ukraine war and things like this. COVID was, for every entrepreneur listening to the pod, is like, dark days, no doubt. But that was interesting. But in the world of Amazon, it turned out to be a real boom. But when it first hit, no one knew what. All clients are like, well, we just need to see what's going on. We don't really know what it means. There was a lot of dancing around for a few months, and then the world of Amazon took off. But still, that was a scary time. But not only just for staff, but for clients as well. Just I felt like I was counselling everyone, really, I think, through it, which is an interesting time.
It's the unknown, right? Of not knowing. And so, you got to that point where you've decided to then just you get your first client on board. But you had that dark moment. Would you change that? Like, would you say that is almost framed, or one of those experiences that was pivotal for you?
Yeah, I think it was definitely one of those experiences, and it's what I've, in my current role at the moment, chief strategy officer. What does that mean? An ideas guy, basically, is what I'm good at. Pivoting strategies to take advantage of opportunities has always been a skill of mine, and I think that's something that really sort of came out of it and going, oh, so when you go through that sort of process, you go, oh, I can do this, I can. So then to be on the front, do it on the front foot, where you can see opportunities like that, rather than that. Back then I was boxed into a corner and I had to change because of the financial situation. I had no choice. I had to do it, but I didn't do it before because I didn't have the confidence to do it. Whereas I should have pivoted to gone with social, and the world of digital and what have you. And that, so when AMP came along, sort of, was it 5 years ago now? So Marketplace AMP, my last business I exited before Optimize on. That was, I was running alongside the sort of digital and content marketing SEO stuff that we were doing. I got pulled into the world of Amazon by Brabantia I mentioned. They were like, oh, we've got 1,200 SKUs on this thing called Amazon, but you guys are good at digital content. Here you go. You look at this while we'll deal with the retailers and what have you. Wasn't quite like that, but that sort of thing. And that we were really good at it from an Amazon SEO point of view, and pay-per-click. We were, because of all the social work we did, managed to apply ourselves to it, and that took off. The first campaign generated like £250,000 in laundry product sales or whatever, and that gained some real momentum. So we had that on the website, but we were starting to get more and more inquiries through Amazon this, Amazon that. Can you do this? Can you do that? And I even got approached by a company in the States called Sphero, who do BB-8 droids, the Star Wars droid.
Oh yeah,
and app-enabled things. And I'm like thinking, for Christ, if a company from sort of Colorado gets in touch with us in the UK in Bristol, then and then we moved over to Cambridge at the time. Then there's got to be something in this. And I was like, actually, no, I had the confidence to go, actually, no, let's pivot and just go straight after the money and go after the Amazon and the marketplace piece. And that's when we did that, and that's when Marketplace AMP just took off, really.
Yeah. Do you think that confidence came from just experience, or because you were thrown in where you had no choice and you had to fight through?
Experience, but I think what I'd done before when I was younger, and we all were like this, is like you're more headstrong, and you're like, I know the right way. I want to do this. I've got teenage, young, 20-something kids, so you see it with them. It's like, I'm not listening to you, mum, dad. Whereas I was a bit older, and I started to create networks. So in Digital East Anglia, I was set up for like collaboration with other businesses, and I always started to sort of collaborate more and talk to people like yourself. It's always good to have those coffee moments again. Actually, well, how's the industry going? What challenge are you having? And sort of staff or whatever, or skills, and sort of work it out as a bit of a support network. So I'd started to build like mentors around myself, like a non-exec director and a couple of other sort of wizened people to sort of lean in on it. So I wanted to go in that direction, but then you could sort of bounce the ideas off, going like, guys, I'm going to do something nuts, montage stuff, that let's go AMP all out on it. And they were like, yeah, do it. This is where the money is. Go for it. So it's supporting yourself with that network is important, I think.
Yeah.
And understanding that you're not always right. It's hard work, business sometimes. So you need that support network.
I love what you say is just figuring out that you're not always right, because I think that's it, right? And that's what we see on social media today, is that it's almost like there's these success stories from individuals that are like, well, this is all you need to do, and make it out like you can do these amazing things on your own, and like it happens first time round. But I mean, how do you sort of shut down those noises that are going on in social and just make sure that it doesn't sort of kind of influence where you're at?
Yeah. Social's a love-hate relationship for me, really. I was totally immersed in it for about 10 years. Just remember even work on trying to tweet on my BlackBerry through sort of TechCrunch events and things. And just I was on doing like Twestival events on Twitter and stuff back in 2007, and really like got very, very addicted to social media to the point of like you can't put the phone down, can't, your thumbs are sore from tweeting or whatever. And I thought, well, actually, is it really turning the dial? Is it really getting the work in? Is it no? So I think it's actually I've got more of a passive relationship with social now. Those people that follow me on LinkedIn do know that I post, but I'm more of a facilitator and a networker really than a huge amount of content now. So it's just finding that balance really, because you can get stuck in these bubbles in social where you just sort of everyone's going, it's all saying the same thing and it's not really much sort of discourse. And what I don't like about LinkedIn in particular is at the moment you see is like lots of AI bots just popping up again. I've come off Twitter completely because of Elon Musk, and ever since Brexit, I had to sort of step out of it. I thought this is just too negative. It's just like, but it has a lot, podcasting, I guess, form of social media as well, has a lot of value as well. Just for like the relationships and the networking and the knowledge as well. So I think I consume a lot of podcasts now, YouTube stuff. So I'm sort of very much focused, but the world of Instagram and influencers and crypto millionaires and FBA, millionaires. If I see another guy in a Lamborghini on Instagram going, "Hey, you can make a passive income on Amazon," I just want to, because we know how hard it is.
Yeah.
And the fact that you just want to scream at them going, it's not that easy.
I know. And then you read the comments that are added to it and you just see, oh my goodness, these people are engaged with this content. Why?
Yes. Yeah. Well, where's the real value? Really?
Yeah.
But good content takes a lot of time and a lot of investment. And I think so less is more rather than just keep on pushing stuff out. I think that's where it's at. And
I love the way that you think about, well, how much are you going to sort of gain through that by being out there all the time on social? Because as you say, is it really going to move the needle? Or actually what you've said is it's all about the connections and the networking part.
Yes.
It's probably going to be more successful, like you said, about creating communities around you.
Yes.
Where you get more out of it.
Yeah. No, I think it's funny, like going back to the Twestival thing, and I'm really into rugby, and managed to get Gareth Chilcott, who's an old rugby player, real character in Bristol. He's got a bar in near the main train station, and we each said, yeah, come and for free, come and use it for this Twitter event. But I still got his number on. I always joke with the Gareth, our head of sales, because I always end up calling Gareth Chilcott for some reason. But you have some really good contacts off the back of it. I think that's where it's the time off social media is more valuable than on it. So if it means you can meet people or figure out a network, that's great. Use that, and then spend the time to sort of develop it off social media is just as important.
That's hugely that's hugely valuable, that advice, because I think that's it. It's actually making true connections rather than like it looks like a connection because you're posting, you see people posting for the sake of almost
great post.
Great post because they want to be seen on that post and everything. But I guess talking with others and building a community is one sort of strategy, I guess, that helps you. How else do you manage to, I guess, switch off from that mind that's constantly going? Or do you just naturally, is your mind constantly going? I'm saying that assuming it, but might not be the case. My mind constantly goes, I'm a worrier. I tend to overthink things, I think, sometimes. So I think that's why social isn't, why I took a step back from like Twitter. It's like, it's just free your head up from the noise, really. So over the last 6-7 years, really, I've practiced mindfulness. I meditate this morning before I came to here, just to try and slow your mind down and just be in the moment, because
social, and I see it with my kids and my daughter especially. I worry about, kids. It's like, are you in the moment? Are you living it now, or are you scrolling through TikTok and looking at someone on the other side of the planet when you're here with your family? It's quite scary. So try not to get lost in it. It's important. Meditate. Try and do more fitness now. Just try and keep on top of things really, and that's what I do.
I love that you talk about mindfulness and meditating.
Yeah.
I'd love to go into that a bit with the meditation part.
Yeah.
Is that something that you were able to adopt quite easily, or has it taken time to be able to do that and allow time in your day to do that?
I think it's my addiction to digital. There was a couple of things. It's like we in AMP very early on, and I think it was just coming into the world of COVID. We had values about work hard, have fun, but make a difference rather than make history. It's like we want to make a difference within the team. So we invested in Tony Kimber, who he was part of Focus 12. Now, Focus 12 is like a support community for addicts and heroin addicts and alcoholics, and some very famous ones. So like there's Russell Brand, there's Joseph Pasquale, there's Davina McCall and Boy George. They've all been helped by his organisation. Unfortunately, it's been mothballed because of funding, without getting too political. It was mothballed, but it's an amazing organisation, and they have 12 steps. And one of the things is actually understanding, being within the moment, and actually meditation and being sort of focused on your mind and mindfulness is really important to come out of alcohol addiction and drug addiction and what have you. But essentially, that's something that he was a practitioner in meditation, and so he did, like, we got him in for the team on Zoom at the time to do these meditations within the team. So we said to the team, okay, it's optional, it's not mandatory, but on this time in the week we can have like an hour with Tony, and he'll do a guided meditation with everybody. You can have your cameras on or your cameras off, but we can all sit at home and meditate. So we did that. So there's a group. It's funny, isn't it? You've got like two types of people in an office. One type of people with the headphones on, heads down, and one type of people with headphones off, talking to others. And the people that were talking to the more gregarious people really benefited from the mindfulness, whereas some people, it just wasn't for them. But I think that's something we rolled out with Tony as our mentor. And then for myself, it's like Headspace and Calm apps and things like that, just to, when your mind's pinging all over the place, you've got someone just telling you something you can follow. So I do that, try to do that on a daily basis really. And Tony sort of, from time and time again, he's a bit of a guru, as it were. And then Andy Reese, who I met through that sort of network, and that he's is martial arts and Qigong Tai Chi guy, basically. He does a lot of like body combat stuff, which he was training some special forces and stuff beforehand. So it's brutal, just very sort of spiritual stuff. So doing things like the Qigong, which is a bit like, for those people who don't know, is a bit like Chinese yoga, essentially, with a bit of Tai Chi influence, and that's doing movements with your body, but in a breathing and meditative state as well. And that's kind of a good thing to do. So did that come out of COVID, and that's another thing that sort of I do to sort of focus the mind really. And that really helps, because I've, by the nature of the business, and when you're a successful entrepreneur, you're pitching and you're getting investment and you're losing clients and you're keeping clients happy, and all this sort of stress can really, really build up, and it's important. You've got to manage it, especially when I'm not young, but I'm not old, but especially as you're getting to a certain age where you realise that, was one of my friend's husbands at the school, basically just had a heart attack recently. He's fine, but you just think, Christ, you've got to manage manage this level of stress. You can't just keep on going on a million miles an hour. So it's important, this sort of stuff, and I think people need to talk about it more as well.
Yeah, definitely. And you've got a huge amount of awareness to be able to identify that. And the fact that I absolutely love what you've just said about bringing someone in for your team to benefit as well from that mindfulness and meditation. I'm like mentally writing notes down, because that's definitely something that, it's not just you benefiting from. You've seen the benefits, how that would help you, your wider team. Well.
Definitely. And it's not just like the oldies that have got a lot on their shoulders like us, I guess. It's the younger generation. I see with like my daughter, just, they're worried about the environment. How am I going to get a house? Oh my God, everything's so expensive. There's a lot of stress for like younger people. And I think mental health is as important as physical, yes, I've had an interesting life and quite a brutal one at times. Who hasn't? You dig into everyone's life and backstory. We've all had hardships, but I think certainly something that I've got family over in the States, so something that the Americans are really good at is they're quite open about mental health, whereas in the Brits it's all stiff upper lip and what do you mean you're upset? Go on, get back to work, boy, sort of thing. Is definitely the mentality that when I was working for P&O, that is a brutal a lot of it's ex-Navy, real macho culture, that is not, and you still see that in business in the UK, that isn't healthy. That's not it's not on. You've got to be able to balance people. People are human, and so many of our businesses are people businesses, and you've got to look after your best asset, which is your people, at the end of the day, because they'll either get burnt out or they'll leave. So you really need to look after them.
Yeah, definitely. And that's like we say, we're talking about social media is more talking about success stories, but actually not enough about the reality of, okay, if you want to be successful, or, well, you can measure success in many different ways, but if you want to get to a certain destination, you always need to remember that part that you're talking about in terms of that mindfulness and just making sure that you are looking after your health. And not, because actually when sometimes people see, I can do X, that's the part that people stretch themselves so almost too much.
And I think that's a realization when I'm a parent as well, so it probably comes easier to parents that, okay, well, if I keel over or if I end up in hospital for a few months, what happens? So health is wealth, really. So as an entrepreneur, you've got to look after yourself, because that body of yours is obviously not only just important from a spiritual and health point of view, but from a wealth point of view, that's your money making tool. And if you're ill, that's it. You might have health insurance if you're fortunate enough to have it, but who does? So you've got to look after yourself. So I think that's what you see for a lot of successful entrepreneurs, is having that balance of mindfulness, looking after themselves, not only because it's good for you, but it actually keeps you fresh. We've all been there when entrepreneurs, where you just like, when we were just saying, kind of the run up to Christmas, you can feel it, like in my mind, sort of like, I've had enough now. When's Christmas coming? We've all gone through Black Friday and Cyber Monday in the world of e-com, and it's been manic. And you're just listening to your body and going, actually, I will be better. And that's sort of like one of my mentors, Andy Reese, the martial arts guy, is like saying, take time out to sharpen the saw, because it'll just go blunt, and you'll keep on sawing away and you'll get nowhere. So just taking time out to sharpen the saw, and then you can be much more effective, rather than this. And blokes, I think, are worse at it. It is that macho-ness of like, I'm going to work. How many hours did you work today? I worked 16 hours, 18 hours. I had a boss from corporate land. I'd leave. If I'd left before 9 o'clock, he'd be like this. What time do you call this?
Crazy, isn't it?
I'm like, well, I've sort of got a life, mate. I need to have a break. I've been here since 7 in the morning.
But you say something interesting. It's listen to your body, which is so powerful. And as we said when we before we started the podcast, we were talking about that, and where you're feeling that run down. And I think that's that moment where not everyone has almost got to that point where they can listen or can't hear it, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah, I think, and then your body starts giving you warning signs, where you're like waking up at 3 a.m, 4 a.m, consistently every day, and that's because your mind's like whizzing around. And I was talking to an entrepreneur, CEO of a large food company, and he was like saying, like, he says, business isn't going well, and you start waking up at 4 a.m every day. And I'm like, I've been there, I've done that. It's like, actually, well, you've got to tell yourself, right, something's got to change. When your body starts giving you these little warning signs, palpitations, I've been there, done that, where you just like, you're so stressed and you're just like, actually my heart's like pounding, and I'm like, this isn't good. You need to chill out, really. Just listen to your body more, and that's something that comes with age, I think, really.
And I think just talking about saying that comes with age. If you were to give yourself some advice, your younger self, some advice after all these years of what you've learned, what would that advice be? I
think, well, it's the advice my wife gives me is like, stop being so hard on yourself. Basically, it's basically I'll get if I was going to talk to my younger self, because that sort of pressure, it's good to have that drive, and it's good to give yourself that pressure, going, right, I want to hit that target, I want to do this, I want to open up there, I want to be in Europe next year, whatever. That's all good. It's when you start getting on top of yourself and beating yourself up, that's not good. Just no, don't do that. And I've been there, done that, and it's just, you sort of start spiraling down and making yourself ill, really. So you just need to sort of actually take time out, set yourself realistic goals that are achievable. People in the world of entrepreneurship, the influencers, we can make 40 million next year from nothing this year, and you're like, no, it's not going to happen. But what is realistic? What money do you need, and can you live on? And focus on realistic goals, rather than going, I want to be the next Alan Sugar, and I want to be the next Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. I mean, bear in mind the last two were born into a considerable amount of money, so it was kind of easier for them than everyone else. So don't pin yourself against these sort of unrealistic idols, really. It's just like, what is realistic, and stick to it. And I'm sure my wife listening to this podcast will go, okay, you remind me of what I've just said, but afterwards. But that's something that I need to sort of focus on.
Yeah, definitely. And I like that part about being realistic. And do you think, and not being hard on yourself, do you think that because I've had quite a few conversations with different business owners, and they sort of question the word entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Almost because it's almost like whether you're an entrepreneur is measured by success, but then success is almost looked at when you look at large, well, not large, but, Jeff Bezos as an example of, that's an entrepreneur. I'm nowhere near as successful as them.
Yeah.
But what does success look like? So do you think by being more realistic in what your goals are helps you to feel more successful as an individual?
Yeah, I mean, what is it, success? What do you want and what do you need? As I always say to the kids, it's like, just figure out what you need and focus on that. My dad's an entrepreneur. He's over in the States. He's growing businesses. He went bankrupt, running another business now. He's in his 70s. He's still working, bless him. Whether it's right or wrong, it's up to the listeners to decide. But anyway, he spends a month in California, doesn't work, but the rest of the year does work, and then can travel around and have a varied lifestyle, and he's not got the pressure on himself. So I'd say that he's got he's successful because he's got a lifestyle business that funds what he wants to do in his retirement, and he still keeps busy and meets interesting people. And I've gone and done this, and I flew over to Chicago, and dealing with big businesses and stuff like that. I mean, he's in his 70s, but he's still going, and he's happy now, I think. Whereas before, you could see he was really sort of driving himself into a hole with working with big corporates and JP Morgans of this world, and the person on social will probably look at him and go, "Oh, look how successful he is." Oh, look at he's working for these big businesses. Oh, he's doing really well, but he sort of drove himself into a wall and went bust.
Yeah.
And it's so many times that, part of what I do is we're looking at other agencies and other businesses, and the amount of times you think, oh, they're doing really well. And then you look at the books and you talk to them about what they're doing. And you're just going, well, actually, how much is it? It's all smoke and mirrors, a lot of business. There's a lot of chat, not much do. But so don't get drawn into the hype, really. Is actually think, what do I need to do? What's realistic, and focus on it.
100%. I think that's great advice as well for our listeners today. And you've been an absolutely awesome guest today. I've loved hearing your story. And, as you're talking about mindfulness, I feel like I'm sinking slightly into the seat, because I'm like, right, I've had quite a few sleepless nights. I'm waking up at 3:00 in the morning.
Yes.
I'm feeling burnt out. I looked in the mirror and thought, oh my goodness, I've just aged 5 years, And, just sitting here with you today, I'm like, I've made so many mental notes of things, because I think sometimes you can forget those things and you lose sight. Yeah. So I want to say thank you for sharing your story. Also, from a personal note, you've just given me a bit of a nudge as well today.
Oh, good. Well, I'd say I'm no guru. I made all the mistakes, so it's not on your own really. But hopefully it helps some entrepreneurs listening and avoid the mistakes that I've made.
Well, thanks once again, and thank you everybody for listening today.
Thanks, guys.
Love this episode? Don't miss out. Hit subscribe on our YouTube channel and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Instagram as we continue to keep it real.